Alright, well, hello everyone. I am getting started here. Just a moment. And yep, there we go. Alright, welcome everyone. So, wanted to give a quick rundown here as I am paying a lot of attention to the upcoming baseball season, or the current baseball season. Was going to give a quick update on some of the major leagues here. This is just kind of a thing that I like to do with. And I'm sorry, just to tell you now, I'm going to be updating things. Yep. So what is happening right now is we are in the middle of August now. We are at about 6, 7 weeks left in the season, depending on what part of the season your country is currently in. And I want to go over a few of the major players here in case anyone wants to get interested here in the closing stretches. I know the long stretch of a baseball season can be quite a pain for certain people because it is a 6 month long commitment, and that can turn extremely tedious if you are not careful. So, and I do apologize here as I am just getting used to testing this out. This is also a chance for me to try some new things here. I want to see how a lot of the standing stuff moves. So I'm able to show it off a little more. What I think I might end up doing is reading off division by division. You'll be able to see as we go. So as you can see, we're starting with Major League Baseball in the United States and Canada, simply because it's probably the main outlet that people in the United States and Canada, North America, will be able to recognize. And so, as I look through, we have the American League East, the American League Central. For those who do not follow the game, Major League Baseball used to be a two-league system where you had the American League of Professional Baseball and the much older National League of Professional Baseball. And they would have their own rule structure, their own histories. They would declare their own champions. And then, right around the turn of the 20th century, they decided that it would not work to continue holding just with two champions. And so the leagues negotiated what was the World Series, where they would take their regular season champions and let them play off a 7 game series. So what I am going to set up here, just a moment. Yeah, I think this one might be better. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to deactivate this, and yes, there we go. Yeah, this will work a lot better. I had been working with projecting out the browser, but that would only work really in a stationary setup. That works more for when we are doing live games, which I will probably get back to doing late August, early September. But for now, let's take a look here. This is the entire American League. So 15 teams, all competing for what is now 6 playoff spots. It's expanded a lot over the years, and it used to just be no playoff at all. You would take the league champion, they'd go straight to the World Series. When the league expanded to having enough teams that you needed an Eastern and Western division, then they would add the league championship series beforehand, where the division champs played each other. When they added this third division, they realized it didn't really makes sense to give one team time off. So they introduced the wild card, which was the best team who didn't win a division, and that would be their 4-team playoff. That round is called the Division Series. And in the last few years, they've added 2 more spots, effectively creating a wild card round, and it's now similar to the NFL's playoffs, just with multiple games. So you can probably see which teams have the best records based on the W's and the L's, but you're seeing a bunch of other stuff like percentage. GB means games back, so how many games behind your leader are you? Some divisions are closer than others. Like you see, the Mariners are a half game back. That means, if you look at the records, 65 and 52, 65 and 53. That means that the Mariners have played 1 additional game and they lost it. That's where the half game comes in, because the Astros have to play their half of this discussion. And if they lose as well, then they're back to even. If the Astros win, they will be 1 ahead in the win column, 1 ahead in the loss column. That makes 1 game. All right, so in baseball for the playoffs, you mainly are looking at your division first, because being the division champion guarantees you a playoff spot. So right now our leaders would be the Toronto Blue Jays, the Detroit Tigers, the Houston Astros. And so what you're looking at right now is a setup where you have all of these teams trying to chase to varying degrees of success. The Mariners, realistically, half a game isn't very much, and they have to play the Astros a few more times, meaning they actually do have a good measure of control on this. With the Tigers, they're 5 games ahead of the Cleveland Guardians, meaning it would take a lot of losses, especially this late in the season, to lose their spot. 5 games is, I will say, as a general rule, you should not expect to gain more than 3 games in a month, because it would require you to consistently be doing a superior job on a week-by-week basis. So you would have to be playing hot consistently for a month and a half. And in baseball, there is a lot of ebbs and flows. Your players get tired, your players need rest. And in what is now called the dog days of August, it is very imperative that players get rest, because September is when everyone really stops taking days off. That Labor Day weekend is kind of the last hurrah before you're making a mad dash to maximize your statistics, to if you're like going for like bonuses, and if your team is contending for a playoff spot, you're trying to be on for the entire month of September. So looking through here, you also have other challenges here, like the Boston Red Sox, 3 games out. As I said, 3 games is about the length of a series. So during the season, you notice teams play 162 times. You can't have one matchup in a day and then you immediately go travel to another opponent. That would be exhausting and it would cost too much. So baseball teams will set up to play 3 or 4 times in a single matchup with the same team, and then they'll go their separate ways. So in theory, this is close enough where if the Red Sox got to match the Blue Jays, they could actually cover the entire distance in one go. Now, it's not usually how it goes. Usually it's a 2-1 split if they play 4 times. It could be 3-1 if the team is definitively playing better. 2-2 is a lot more natural. So that's why I'm saying it's difficult to gain a lot of ground unless you are just playing extremely well and the other team is playing extremely poorly. But in theory, the Red Sox are in a decent spot here, especially if they can gain a little more. and actually get within that window where a 3-game sweep would put them ahead. All right, so beyond those 3, you have the wild card spots. Those can come from any division. Those are the 3 best records beyond the 3 division leaders. So in this case, the team with the best record is actually even. The Seattle Mariners and the Boston Red Sox are both 65 and 53. And what this will tell you is that Seattle and Boston, if you see it, they are far apart in terms of how close they are in their divisions, which tells me that the American League East has a slightly better leader right now. The Blue Jays are a much more difficult challenge than the Astros. But it can also mean the division is just tighter in general. Like you look here, you have the top 4 teams within 9 games of each other, where here it's 11. So just reading that, it means the West plays each other a lot closer. The teams are slightly more even in matchup. Where over here, you could say the Blue Jays either are significantly better or they were significantly better, depending on if they developed this lead really early or if it came recently. All right, so then that's 2 of the spots. That takes care of it easily. Now the last one, it appears the next best team would be the New York Yankees at 62 and 55. The Guardians are at 61 and 55, so they do have a claim to it. They just need to win the extra game. But that's where the danger comes in. You've got 6 teams or 6 positions, and you have right now 7 teams fairly close to it. 8 if you count the Texas Rangers here, who are approximately 5.5 back of the Red Sox. We know the Yankees are 2.5 back. That would put the Guardians 3 full games back. So the Rangers are probably on the very, very outs of it. It's extremely unlikely that they could make a run at it, but if they played, if they had a hot set of weeks, 5.5 is still within reach. I would usually say if you're within, at this stage, about 6 games, you have a puncher's chance at it. Once you get about 7 back, it takes a monumental collapse from the team ahead. Now, the division leaders, it does matter that they keep beating each other, and this win percentage becomes an important factor right now. Because the one with the highest win percentage is the one who is going to receive home field advantage in the playoffs. The playoffs are decided in best-of-7 series in North America. So you have to win 4 out of 7 games. So whoever is the higher seed gets 4 home games. Meaning you don't have to win any games in the other ballpark. You just have to protect your home field. Right, so Blue Jays are the clear number 1 right now. Or rather, they're definitively number 1 based on the percentage and the win record. However, they're not significantly farther ahead of the Detroit Tigers. 1 win behind, 1 loss behind. That's a full game. Then you look at the Astros, from the Tigers to the Astros. 2 wins behind, 1 loss behind. So 2-1, that is 1.5. So the Astros are 1.5 behind the Tigers. The Tigers are 1 full behind the Blue Jays. What that will tell you, and the reason it's important for playoff positioning, is that home field advantage. Plus, you're probably counting it, if you have 6 teams, you're going to end up with an odd number at a certain point. So, in order to fix that, the top 2 seeds don't play in the first round. They will get a couple of days to rest their bodies while the other teams play out the wild card round. So in this case, the Blue Jays and Tigers get time off. if you have been significantly injured late in the season, it can be very helpful to be able to basically take almost a full week off right before you start playing again. Now, for younger teams, this actually comes back to bite them. They are unable to handle the time off because they were in a rhythm, and it takes them a game or two to get back in rhythm. By then, the team who came up in the playoffs has already built a lead on them. So now we're going to look over at the National League. So you see a few famous squads here. The thing about the National League is the 6 teams have largely been set for a while, and only recently have we gotten some teams who want to actually make an issue of it. So over in the Eastern Division, the Phillies and Mets have been the top 2 for a while. And we've started to get to the point where, like, the Marlins at a stretch might be able to get hot, but they have been very far behind for a while. And realistically, the only reason they're close is because the Mets have been losing constantly for the last week and a half, and have pretty much blown what had been a first place position, and now are significantly behind the Phillies. But if this collapse continues, it does put the Marlins back into play for second place. So the Phillies and Mets right now are the clear 1s and 2s. Over in the Central, you have a clear 1 and 2 with the Milwaukee Brewers and the Chicago Cubs. The Cubs had been number 1 for a while, but in recent weeks, the Brewers have been playing extremely well and have jumped ahead of everyone in the league. So they are the current leaders in the clubhouse, and if you saw the American League standings, they are the best team in the major leagues right now. Over in the West, you have the Dodgers and you have the Padres, who are still having a very competitive race, though the Padres have not really threatened the Dodgers since early May. They've been sitting roughly 3 to 5 games back the whole time, and they're just looking for a cold spell to start making their move. But these have been the 6 for quite some time. In recent weeks, however, we have noticed the Cincinnati Reds are now pretty far above the 500 percentage. That means their wins are now more than their losses by more than just 1 or 2 games. This is the point where you would have to go on a complete cold spell to actually end up falling back under. And so now you're looking. The Mets right now have the weakest of the 6 records of the main contenders. They have 2 more wins, 3 fewer losses. So 1 full, 2 full, and 1 unpaired. That's 2.5 games. So the Reds right now are in a position where if they were to match the Mets in a 3-game series and sweep it, they could take that spot. Or if the Mets just continue to falter, they can just continue winning at their normal pace and they'll probably catch them. Now, going back through the rest of this, talking about the seedings, the Brewers are the clear 1. The win percentage right now shows the Dodgers are about... They're not ahead by much, but they've got 1 extra win on them. So it's a half-game lead over the Phillies, who are now 3rd. The 4th position would be the top wild card. Right now, that is the Chicago Cubs with a .578 winning percentage. Padres would be 5th. Mets are 6th. In playoffs, the way that the series are decided, 1 and 2 get that week off, so the Brewers and Dodgers would take time off. The top division leader, or the 3rd division leader, is positioned in spot 3. That would be the Phillies. And they would face the worst wild card, which would be the Mets. In the wild card round, they don't want to spend money on traveling, so the higher seed gets to be home for the entire 3-game series. So in that case, the Mets would go play in Philadelphia for 3 games, and whoever won 2 games first would advance. The other 2 wild cards, the Cubs and the Padres, would match each other, with the team with the better record getting the 3 home games. So in this case, the Padres would go to Chicago and play at Wrigley Field for potentially 3 games. Best 2 out of 3. And that's how American baseball kind of functions on that. I will be going over this periodically, but I want to also go over a couple of other leagues that are going. Gonna zoom in on this one. So I'm using the NPB on Reddit Blue Sky for the record. Nippon Professional Baseball. This is the league in Japan. This is the highest league in the entire Eastern Hemisphere. It is the top league beyond Major League Baseball in the rankings. And it is one of the oldest leagues as well. It technically started in the late 40s. However, a version of this league with about half of these teams did exist before that, all the way back to the early 30s. So looking at these teams, right now these are just logos. They don't mean much to people who are unfamiliar. But let's read through all the things here. GM means games played. So as you see right now, in the Central League, you have the Hanshin Tigers. That's this logo. They've played 104 times out of their 143-game season. 102 for the Yomiuri Giants, 101 for the Yokohama DNA Bay Stars, 102 each for the Hiroshima Carp and the Chunichi Dragons, and 97 games played for the Yakult Swallows. Then you have the list of wins, the list of losses. T for tie. So in Japanese and honestly most Eastern Hemisphere baseball, they set a hard limit of 12 innings. Reason being, they don't want the games to run long. They want people to be able to rest and get ready for their next day. So the way they manage that is if after you play a 12th inning, the game is still even, they just call it, give both teams a tie, move on. That has been the standard all the way back to the league's founding. And as you can see, it probably affects things a little bit because you've got Bay Stars, Carp, Swallows all having 5 ties. If those had been decided if those had to go to a decision and they'd all been wins, the Bay Stars right now would have more wins than the Giants ahead of them. If they all broke the Carp's way, the Carp would be at 49 right now and in striking distance. So this does have a major effect on how the teams end up strategizing because you have only a certain amount of games and you've already lost some of them. So then you have win percentage, and then you have GB, games back. But one thing has changed. This M29, this is something that comes up in baseball towards the end of the season. And this is the magic number. The magic number is the point where a team who's in first place becomes so far ahead that they can no longer be caught. Even if they were to lose every remaining game, even if their second place team won every game, it would not matter. They would still be ahead because they've built such a lead. And so right now, you see the Giants are 11.5 behind the Tigers. And we are starting to run out of games in the season. The Tigers have 39 games remaining, 143 minus of 104. The Giants have 41 games remaining. And as you already heard from me with the Major League Baseball stuff, anything after 6 games becomes a stretch at this point in the season. So you can start tracking a magic number at any point. I personally don't like to pay attention to it until yes, I don't like to pay attention to it until we get to 30, because otherwise it would take so long for the number to drop that it becomes somewhat unrealistic to track it. So 29 is a good number to start looking at. What that means is the Tigers could win 29 more games and the division's over. But they don't have to just win 29. That's not the only way to do it. If they were to win 20 games and the Giants lost 9, that would also be a combination of 29. If the Tigers were to win 17, Giants lose 12, that also counts. And it is worth noting, a team does have a magic number with everyone, so they would have a different magic number to clinch against the Bay Stars, a different one for the Carp, a different one for the Giants. But it's a much lower number, so the magic number you see is always the largest one remaining. Right now, that would almost certainly be the Giants in this case. And sometimes it does become the third place team has a better chance if, let's say, in games played, the third place team had played significantly fewer games, 7 or 8 fewer games, and it's still this close, then the third place team might have the real magic number to track. But since everyone's pretty bunched up in terms of games played, then, yeah, the second place is what you're looking for. You're also noticing probably this is not a strong league this year. The Tigers have run away with it. You can also tell by the run differential. They have so this tells you how many runs they've scored, how many runs they've allowed. And then you have the actual difference. The Tigers have scored 120 more runs than their opponents this year. The only other team with a positive number is the Bay Stars at 12 more runs scored. The Giants are exactly even. 303 runs scored, 303 against. And everyone else is in the negative. Over here, you do have their list of home runs, their list of stolen bases, their team batting average, and their team ERA. But those, for the sake of the standings, won't really matter. It's just listed there. Once again, credit to NPB on Reddit for having as in-depth of a thing here. You can usually see these in their Reddit posts. I usually get the images through their Blue Sky. Alright, so looking through this, you've got the Tigers pretty clearly at number 1. The playoffs in NPB give the first place team, the pennant winner, a spot in the final round of the playoffs immediately, and they will match up with one of the teams in the league, either the second or the third place team. The second and third place team will do a best of 3. So right now that would be the Giants and that would be the Bay Stars. 2.5 games separate the two. That means home field would go to the Giants and the games will be played in the Tokyo Dome. And then 2.5 games separate the Bay Stars and the Carp. 3 games separate the Bay Stars and the Dragons. So in all honesty, because it's a smaller league and these 6 teams play each other pretty much on a consistent loop, this is far from over. These 3 can absolutely catch each other. And honestly, even at a stretch, the Dragons could get as high up as the Giants. That 6-game margin still kind of holds, and everyone is still within that window beyond the Swallows, who are very much far behind. Over on the Pacific League side, it is a much more competitive picture. You'll notice slightly fewer games played, like the Buffaloes haven't hit 100 yet, the Marines haven't hit 100 yet. But everyone is still hitting the 100 mark right now. We are getting into the latter stages of the league. For most of the season, the leader was right here. The Hokkaido Nippon Ham Fighters, in second place right now, had been the leader for most of the year. And so what's happening with the Fighters is they've gotten very cold recently, especially in matchups against the Fukuoka SoftBank Hawks, who are sitting in first. The teams right now are 3 games apart. That is still not a huge amount, and they do play a significant amount of times still. But it is worth noting which team is trending upward. So the battle for that home field and that top spot is very important. The second place team would still get to try to play their way in, but there are a lot of disadvantages to coming up and trying to knock off the top seed. We'll get into that as we get closer to the playoffs. Third place right now is the Oryx Buffaloes, 11 games out of first. At this point, they're pretty much out of the picture in terms of trying to win the pennant, but they are holding a postseason position. And they're trying to hold off the Tohoku Rockton Golden Eagles, who are 3 games behind them, the Seibu Lions, who are 5.5 behind them, and they're probably pretty safe on facing the Chiba Lotte Marines, who lost their top pitcher to the Los Angeles Dodgers in the offseason and are struggling mightily to find replacements. It was a very young team to begin with, and now the loss of a star player is kind of showing its negative effects. And before we wrap up on this, I'm going to bring up 2 other leagues here. This is the KBO, the Korean Baseball Organization. For most of the season, the leader has been either the LG Twins or the Hanwha Eagles. Hanwha has actually been in charge of it for a while, but they have gone cold in the last 3 weeks and have lost their lead. The LG Twins are a recent champion, so it was not surprising that they're going to keep fighting for it. They're holding their own right now. Still looking to try to get back to that title defense position. After that, you have the Lotte Giants, 6.5 out. Getting to that point where the first place is not really doable, but in a 10-team league, they give playoff spots to 5 of them. So Lotte is pretty safely in the playoff picture right now. SSG Landers are currently holding position 4, and 5th place is currently a tie between the Kia Tigers and KT Wiz. Teams aren't significantly far back. Only a game and a half out of the playoffs are NC Dinos, and 2 games back are the Samsung Lions. So you do have some intrigue here, especially in the battle for 4 through 8. About 3 games separating all of them. But right now it does look like we have a top 3 in some order being set between LG, Hanwha, and Lotte. And if you heard Lotte a couple times, that is because they sponsor 2 teams or own 2 teams. They own the Giants in Korea and the Marines in Japan. Usually, the last few years, it has been the Marines doing significantly better. This year, it looks like their investment in Korea is paying off. Final league I'm going to talk about is the CPBL. This league is competed out in Taiwan. This is a 6-team league and each team sits in about one of the 6 major cities. I'm on a different site because in terms of going through Flash Score, tracks it better. You'll notice not as many games are played here, but that is because they have a 2-stage league. So the first stage was 60 games, and the Uni Lions became the first place team in there. They won the league, sitting about 2 games ahead of the China Trust Brothers, and a few more games ahead of the Rockton Monkeys and the TSG Hawks. Over here, the China Trust Brothers are now in first place in the second half. And the Uni Lions are actually way back in last behind everybody. And a lot of that happens because when you're dealing with a split league format, when you win the first half of the league, motivation starts to dip. and the team starts to try to just use the early part of the second half to relax and get themselves back to full strength, and then they'll use the last few games to build their momentum back up. The way their postseason is going to work is that first stage champion and the second stage champion will advance to the postseason along with the top performing team who didn't win. At this stage, it is tough to tell how that will break down, but it does look like the Lions and Brothers will be in the two positions unless they start to go cold. After that, we shall see. The Rockton Monkeys and TSG Hawks were about even in the first half. They're separated by win percentage right now. Or actually, Rockton's far behind. No, sorry, that was the Weichuan Dragons. So, yeah, actually, the TSG Hawks would hold the extra position. So we'll see how this goes. I'll track these leagues as we continue on. But it was a nice thing to just give us a break in the action. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to take a break. And then we will go to a couple of games. All right, so talk to you in a bit.